Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Dobbs here. It's the 12th of July, 2019, and it's just a very quick follow-up video. I'm not going to put any overlays. It's just a very, very brief video, just more about this potential, possible earthquake that we might get on the 16th. I don't know for sure if that's going to happen. I don't know. We never know in advance. We certainly saw it coming in the shot that Alex Lujan put up on the. Well, he put it up about a week ago. It was an incredible shot of what looks like this same object that we keep seeing and that we've seen regularly on every 200 days since 2011. And I think we've missed, in that entire sequence, I think we've missed one or two out of that entire sequence. So every 200 days we've seen that. All I say is that going by the 200-day timeline, it comes out in October, and ironically, this whole Brexit no deal thing also falls in October. So, if whatever that was that we saw that clearly came with a massive earthquake, in California, and we know it brings earthquakes. It's going to be very telling now. If we don't get any activity over this next full moon, then that was quite a distant flyby. And I'm still desperately trying to work this out. I really am. It defies all of our models. It defies the kind of Copernicus model, the standard model, the ecliptic plane that we're all in, this 400-year model. It completely defies that. All these shots of Jupiter, around April, May, June, they all and the same last year. Jupiter being massive, they also all defy our Copernicus model. We've got to look what we're really seeing, and we've got to challenge this. And I'm not absolutely saying 100% that this earthquake's going to happen in 4 days, but if it doesn't, if the big earth changes, if we don't see any big earth changes now in the next few days or during the next full moon, it's a big indicator. Yes, possibly. It's been so difficult to calculate and understand, and like I say, as we start building this model, as we continue to keep building this model, we start getting another perspective of our solar system, of the realm that we live in. But we have to remember that there is this big Brexit thing happening. They are dangling this no-deal Brexit, and really, that's just trying to force all of the rest of Europe to sign a free trade deal, and threatening the purse strings to the rest of Europe if they don't comply with a free trade deal that would leave them. Every country in Europe would become sued, and heavily sued. You remember how he talks about how NAFTA has left, which is a free trade deal with member state dispute systems, which has left Canada the most sued nation on the planet. They can't stand in front of any type of legislation. Each court case costs minimum 10 billion, some of them in the hundreds of billions. They dwarf kind of your understanding of court cases, corporate law court cases by a massive amount, because it's big corporations taking the country to court for loss of profits because some small council, or I don't know what they call them in Canada, but this one state says no to a particular type of industry. Maybe it's like the Canadian sands. It's very, very toxic, and you see what's happening in Nova Scotia and places like that where it's just being torn to pieces, and no one can stand in its way, because they can't afford to stand up against this system, because they've signed into a system that they have to do these. The whole thing is done through these courtroom processes, which are done over and above their existing jurisdiction, their existing judicial systems, and that's everything the Brexiteers were saying they didn't want to get away, and that's everything they're walking into with this free trade deal, ironically. And that thing comes in, that free trade deal is being dangled as a massive threat to the rest of the whole of Europe. That the purse strings get cut off in October if the deal isn't struck. And so it's a massive threat to the whole of Europe, really. This is a gun under the table to the whole of Europe. The shoe's absolutely on the other foot. And so in this situation, we are left with a question of whether we're going to get this flyby now or whether we're going to get this flyby in October. And if it comes in October, what does that mean in terms of when is the next flyby after that? And so we just have to wait and see. But from whatever happens, we will be able to calculate a lot more. We'll be able to calculate a lot more about this whole system by what happens over the next week. We really will. And what was that just flew by? Was that the, if there is these two objects, these twins, as Alex calls them, or whatever you want to call them, these two twin-tail objects, comets, planets, they're big. They can obviously cause earthquakes, tsunamis and volcanoes to go off, so they've got to be quite big. We're just working it out, and just on a note of what can you do if you can get an idea that this thing mostly comes on the full and dark moons. That's the time it seems to most bring about the biggest earth changes. What can you do? Certainly not panicking, it's not going to help, or anything else like that, but most of these earthquakes are going to have some sort of pre-warning, and if you're in a space that is you consider to be dangerous in an earthquake, then if you get a tremor, especially around the time of a full moon, just don't wait around. Just get straight out of the building. Get out or get away from anything that's dangerous. Get away from falling debris and that sort of stuff. Just, it's only like on those days, on the full moon and the dark moons, around these periods where we think there might be a potential flyby. And I'm sitting on my boat, by the way. It's been sort of condemned a little bit because it's got a lot of rust on the hull, which is why I got it so cheap. But so it needs a lot of work. So but it's still floating right now. It's just you can't really do that much, can you? Maybe sort of like this isn't going to be the biggest. This is by no means going to be the biggest kind of earth change we're going to see in this system, because it's still not massively. But it is if the flyby that we've got coming up, be it in October, be it now or August, middle of August. If we don't get any real signs of it now, and that was possibly the other twin, or which one of the twins it was that we just saw. These are things that we're just going to have to now review that data, review as much of the information as we can get about that last flyby, and just keep throwing all this data into different models and trying to make sense of it. But logically, if it doesn't happen now and we don't see any big change in August, remember the last kind of like the big tsunami came late September, so maybe it is going to be kind of like the nearest full moon or dark moon to the latter part of October. And that would be quite ironic if remember the whole Brexit vote was done on the day of a flyby on the 23rd of June 2016. Trump's inauguration on the 21st of January 2017, and we saw that massive flyby. Massive. We've got a lot of evidence here, and I can only do the best and try and highlight the pattern. So I don't absolutely know that we're going to get that geological change. I really don't know, but I do know that we have got one coming in, and I think we all know that if we're honest with ourselves. We know that there's something big affecting the Earth, and we know that we need to take heed. it's given us lots of warnings. We've already got 4 nuclear power stations, which I can tie to the movements of this, and we can definitely say that are a result of earthquakes, and 4 nuclear power stations split open, just ruptured as a result of seismic activity. So I haven't got the answers. I really haven't got all the answers here, and we're building it, but we are opening ourselves to another story here. And that is, I'm very limited with what I can do. And I feel as if I've gotten back to square one, really. I feel as if this last flyby might have completely blown my existing model to pieces. And it might be time to go back to the drawing board and try and update the whole thing again. But on the same in the same sort of fashion, it's if it doesn't happen, if we don't see the big seismic activity somewhere between now and mid-August, we absolutely know that it will be in October, and that's it's an absolute, it's sheer deduction. It's going to be one side of that late September that we saw last year, 1 month after that or 1 month before, and truly I don't know which way it's going to be. Truly I do not know, but we can at least be vigilant around that time, and if we start seeing big shaking and that sort of stuff, get away from, try and remove yourself away from danger as best you can, and those that you love, take them away from potentially dangerous places in earthquakes. If the ground shakes and that sort of stuff and you're not near anything that's going to fall on you, okay, you're going to fall to the ground and you're going to have to get down as the ground shakes and you slide around a little bit, but really, so apologies for not being able to be clearer, because I truly just do not know which side of late September it's going to fall. I really don't know. It's kind of like, it's guesswork now. It's calculated guesswork using all the data that we've got, but there's so much, because we've got 2 of the bloody things up there. It's very, very difficult to say. Good luck. Hopefully nothing happens. Hopefully we can sail through this and everything else like that. And whatever we saw was, well, let's see what happens now. And if nothing happens now, and no more seismic activity till kind of like no more seismic activity right up through to August, then it's going to be. It's not going to be in September, it's going to be right on the other side, on the October side. And we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess. But that's me for a little while now. There's not a lot more I can do now, and I feel like I'm going to put some more time into kind of like trying to develop the timeline a little bit more as we find out what happens now. That's all we can do, is find out what happens now. And the type of earth changes we're going to see now. We just got to watch that space and be vigilant and be wise and be ready to be quick off the mark if we need to. Okay, that's it really. Good luck out there, really, really good luck, and all the love in the world to you, and don't forget to bring in great assistance at this time. Invite it in, the highest help. Invite the gods in to help us now. Wherever you find your God, wherever you connect, go to that space and ask for as much help and guidance and wisdom in all this process. And we're just going to try and work it out. Take care. Bye bye.